You're standing in Harbor Freight, staring at the Predator wall. A friend told you to buy the biggest one you can afford. That advice will cost you $2,000 and a burned exhaust valve. I'm Ranger Rick. The Army trains a soldier for this job. That MOS is 91 Delta, Power Generation Equipment Repairer. The Predator line is the working man's grid backup for a reason. Some units are the right answer for your house. Others waste fuel you can't resupply. One of them is the machine every veteran actually buys. Another sits in every prepper's garage collecting dust. Both live under the same badge. Here's how to pick without lighting money on fire. Start with the machine you probably shouldn't buy. The Predator 9,500 watt super quiet inverter. Item number 71,365. It's rated 7,600 running watts and 9,500 surge. On paper, it's a bargain. Roughly $1,999 at Harbor Freight. 257 pounds of American basement thunder. 67 decibels awaited at 23 feet. Every veteran in a Facebook prepping group recommends it on reflex. That reflex is wrong for most of you. Here's the problem. Load matching decides everything on a generator. A 3-person household in an outage pulls maybe 1,800 watts. Fridge, chest freezer, furnace blower, well pump, CPAP. That's it. You just bought a machine rated for 4 times what you're actually pulling. The engine spends its outage loafing at roughly 19% of rated load. That's exactly the operating condition that produces carbon fouling on the exhaust valves. Cylinder walls glaze, rings stop seating. You paid $2,000 for accelerated wear. Fuel math is worse. An oversized generator burns more gasoline to make the same watts, a meaningful amount more. Gasoline engines have an efficient load band. Below it, the unit fouls. You're nowhere near that band. During a 3-day ice storm, you'll burn through fuel you can't resupply. Gas stations without power don't pump. Noise matters too. 67 decibels at 23 feet is loud. Loud enough that your neighbors 2 houses down know you have power. In a mild storm, that's an inconvenience. In a long grid down event, it's a broadcast. We'll come back to that in Chapter 11. Then there's what you paid. $2,000 puts you within a few hundred of a Honda EU 7000 IS or a Yamaha EF 6300 ISDE. Both quieter. Both longer lived. Both hold resale value the Predator does not. Predator alternator windings are competent, not premium. Civilians assume more watts equals more capability. Trained operators size to actual load with a small headroom margin. The mistake is treating peak wattage as a virtue. Peak wattage is a specification. You match it to the sheet or you waste it. Who should buy the 9,500 anyway? Rural households running a 1-horsepower deep well pump alongside multiple other inductive loads. That load stack legitimately spikes past 6,000 watts. That household needs the headroom. Most everyone else doesn't. The majority of buyers grabbing the biggest number in the aisle simply haven't done the arithmetic. Skip it unless your load sheet actually justifies it. That sheet is a real document. You write down each circuit you want to run. You add up the running watts. You add the single largest starting spike. The answer is almost never 9,500. For most of you, it's roughly 3,000. The next chapter is the machine that fits. I've put together a printable load sheet with the 9,500 trap math for you, linked first line of the description. This is the machine most veterans actually own. The Predator 3,500 watt super quiet inverter. Item 59,137, or the CO Secure successor, item 71,358. Same class of machine. Added onboard shutoff sensor, 3,000 running watts, 3,500 peak, pure sine wave output, about 99 pounds. You can lift it into a truck bed alone if you're careful. Runtime is real, roughly 11 hours at 25% load on a 2.5-gallon tank. That's a night through a morning without touching the fuel cap. Noise reads about 56 to 57 decibels. Weighted at 23 feet. Quiet enough that you can hold a conversation next to it. Not silent. Nothing at this price point is silent. Price is where the argument ends for most buyers. Harbor Freight lists it around $899. It's dropped to $599 or $699 during coupon cycles in 2026. A Honda EU 3000 IS runs roughly $2,300. A Yamaha EF 3000 ISEB about $2,200. The Predator is one-third the money for the same output category. Independent teardown reviewers keep finding the same thing. Alternator windings, inverter board, cooling design, all competent, under premium spec, above budget spec. What breaks first? Bearings, fuel cap venting, long-term parts availability. None of these are year 1 problems. They're year 3 or year 4 problems. By that point, you've saved well over $1,000 against the Honda. Pure sine wave output matters for what you're going to run. Your CPAP requires clean power. So does the laptop you'll use to check weather updates. The inverter compressor on a newer refrigerator expects clean power too. An open-frame conventional generator makes a modified sine wave. Sensitive electronics don't like it. This machine solves that at the outlet. Load fit for a typical American household. Fridge running at 150 watts. Chest freezer running similar. Furnace blower at 300 to 400 watts. LED lighting totaling maybe 60. A CPAP with humidifier at 60 to 90 watts. Add the largest starting spike, which is usually your fridge at 600 to 700. Total sits in the 2200 watt zone during that spike. The 3500 handles that load with headroom to spare. Which is exactly the point. That's the load band the machine was designed to see. Warranty is short, 90 days on the machine itself, 2 years on the emissions components. Harbor Freight sells its extended service protection at the register. Buy it or don't. The math is your call. Functions this unit covers: household backup during outages, CPAP through the night, refrigeration and freezer preservation, furnace ignition and blower, phone and radio charging for the whole family. If you own exactly one Predator, own this one. Downshift for a moment. The Predator 2000 watt super quiet inverter. Item 71,343. 1600 running watts. 2000 peak. Weighs about 48 pounds. You can carry it in one hand if you're strong. 2 hands if you're honest. Noise reads roughly 58 decibels. Weighted at 23 feet. Fuel tank holds 1 gallon. Runtime lands around 12 hours at 25% load. That's an overnight run for a fridge and a CPAP without a top off. Price sits in the $500 to $600 range depending on coupon cycles. That puts it in reach of an apartment dweller who wants some resilience, or a camper who needs shore power without a hookup, or a household whose whole ask is fridge, phones, and CPAP. Here's where trained thinking beats civilian thinking. Most buyers underbuy on capacity first, then panic during the outage. That panic pushes people toward the 9,500 trap we just discussed. A better strategy sits right in front of you. Buy 2 of these 2,000 watt units. Parallel them with the manufacturer kit. Combined output lands around 3,200 watts. Run one alone for the mild outage. Run both for the once-a-year winter storm. You've bought flexibility instead of a single point of failure. Against a Honda EU 2200 the Predator is roughly half the price. Comparable output rating on paper. Noticeably less refined mechanical quietness in the room. The Honda hum is smoother. The Predator hum has more character. Character isn't a virtue when you're trying to sleep next to it. The honest failure modes are the fuel cap and the recoil starter. Both are cheap to replace. Neither ends the machine's useful life. Warranty pattern matches the 3500. 90 days on the machine, 2 years on emissions. If you're buying used, assume you need to add a low-level CO monitor to the setup regardless. We'll cover monitors in Chapter 7. Functions this unit covers: apartment or condo backup with limited storage room, camper or truck bed shore power, tailgate rigs and small tool charging, overnight CPAP paired with a small fridge on the second outlet, emergency household backup for a 2-room minimum load. That's the honest job description. Sizing rule for this class of machine. If your whole ask is refrigeration plus one medical device, this is enough. If you want the furnace blower running 2, you're at the edge. 2 units paralleled will handle a furnace blower plus a fridge cycle. One alone will not. Know which side of that line you sit on before you drive to the store. The 2000 is the smallest generator worth owning for household backup. Anything smaller is a camping toy. Anything meaningfully larger belongs in the next chapter. Different tool for a different job. Harbor Freight no longer stocks the older Predator 6250, the current open frame in the Predator lineup. The 6500-watt gas-powered portable. Item 59205, roughly $599. Running watts in the 5500 class. Starting watts near 6500. 90-day warranty like the rest of the lineup. This is not an inverter. The output is a modified sine wave. That word choice matters. Sensitive electronics don't tolerate a modified sine wave well. Laptops, medical equipment, newer inverter refrigerator compressors, none of those should run directly off this machine. Solution is a decoupled setup. Run the inductive loads off the open frame. Feed the electronics from a small inverter or a battery power station. The battery station charges from the open frame during the day. Sensitive gear gets clean power. The pump gets the raw torque it needs. 2 machines, each doing what it does best. Why the open frame at all? Inductive load starts. A half-horsepower well pump draws 700 to 1100 watts running. It spikes between 2000 and 4000 watts on start. That spike lasts under a second. It's the reason so many inverter generators trip on the first pump call of the outage. The open frame swallows that spike without noticing. Real household load stack on a rural property. Half-horsepower well pump at 1000 watts running. Add a 3000 watt spike on start. Fridge at 150 running with a 600 watt spike. Freezer similar. Furnace blower at 350 running with an 800 watt spike. Sump pump at 300 running with a 1050 spike. Total running watts around 2000. Total worst case spike, if the well pump and sump both call at the same second, around 5000. The 6500 class handles that. The 3500 inverter does not. Noise trade-off is real. Open frame runs 72 to 75 decibels, a weighted at 23 feet. That's meaningfully louder than any inverter class unit. Rural properties usually swallow this. Suburban lots often do not. Know your neighbors and your setback distances before you commit to this class. Functions this unit covers. Well, pump duty for rural households, sump pump duty during flood events, furnace and blower during winter outages, refrigeration and freezer coverage in parallel with the pumps. Job site construction power for corded tools and lighting. 5 roles the inverter class can't cover without an outboard well pump helper unit. Selection criteria for buyers. Live on a private well? This is your machine. Deep well with a 1 horsepower pump running with other simultaneous loads? You're at the top edge of this class. Look at the 9500 discussed in Chapter 1, only if your load sheet actually spikes past 6000 watts. Suburban lot with municipal water? Skip this class entirely and buy the inverter. Noise-sensitive property or close neighbors. Also skip this class and buy the inverter. The open frame exists for one reason. Inductive load starts you can't get from an inverter of the same nominal wattage. Now, the safety hardware. The Interlock kit for your residential main breaker panel. Roughly $150 to $250 for the kit, plus the inlet box and the generator cable. Manufacturers include Interlockkit.com and Reliance Controls. The kit is a mechanical plate. It physically prevents the utility main breaker and the generator inlet breaker from being closed at the same time. That's it. That's the entire safety mechanism, $150. Why it matters. Without one, the shortcut path is what we call a suicide cord. That's a double male plug jammed into a dryer outlet with the generator on the other end. When the utility power comes back on and your main breaker is still up, Current backfeeds through your panel, up through the meter, through the transformer on the pole. That transformer steps distribution voltage down for your house. It works in reverse too. Your generator's output gets stepped back up to distribution voltage on the pole side. A lineman working to restore your service touches a wire the utility believes to be de-energized. That's an electrocution hazard. The National Electrical Code addresses this directly. Article 702 requires that generator connections to premises wiring be arranged so inadvertent interconnection with the utility supply is prevented. Interlock kits satisfy that requirement. Transfer switches satisfy it too. Suicide cords don't. Two paths satisfy the code. Path 1 is the interlock kit plus a generator inlet box. Total materials, kit plus inlet box plus cable, land in the 150 to 250 range. Add electrician labor on top of the hardware if you aren't doing the install yourself. Path 2 is a manual transfer switch. Reliance controls ProTran 2 Model 306 CRK, or the larger A310A, 6 to 10 circuits, depending on which unit you pick. $300 to $500 in materials before labor. This device picks specific circuits and moves them between utility and generator manually. It's cleaner. It requires you to pre-pick your critical loads. The interlock method lets you use any breaker in the panel one at a time within the generator's capacity. Which one do you want? If you can discipline yourself around load management, the interlock is cheaper and more flexible. If you want the transfer switch to enforce discipline on you, the ProTran 2 is worth the money. Both are legal. Both are safe. Neither is optional on a permanent installation. Functions this hardware covers. Backfeed prevention. That's the big one. Utility lineman safety. That's the function. That's the reason it exists. A suicide cord looks cheaper. Include your legal exposure in the pricing and the number flips hard. All you saved was the weekend to install the interlock properly. That weekend arrives sometime before the day the lights come back on. Fuel storage decides whether your generator starts on day 1. It sits above the brand. It sits above the maintenance schedule. It's the top of the priority list. The system itself is simple. Ethanol-free gasoline, metal or quality plastic 5-gallon can. Stabilizer, rotation, that's the system. Return on investment, the generator you paid $600 for actually starts. Start with the fuel. E10, the 10% ethanol blend at most pumps, is hygroscopic. It draws atmospheric water through a vented cap. At roughly 0.5% water content, the mixture undergoes phase separation. A water alcohol layer settles on the bottom of the tank. That layer will not combust. It will corrode a steel tank. Above it, the gasoline loses octane and forms gum deposits. Time frame, 30 to 90 days in most storage conditions. That's why so many stored generators do not start on the first hurricane call. The fix is ethanol-free gasoline, sometimes called clear gas, sometimes called marine gas. Marinas sell it because outboard motors are ethanol allergic. So do specific stations you can find at puregas.org, which is a crowdsourced map of ethanol-free pumps by state. Know your nearest source before you need it. Second, the stabilizer. Gold Eagle's dependable storage is the red bottle. It's marketed for up to 24 months of stabilized storage on treated fuel. dependable 360 and the marine formulations add corrosion protection over the same interval. Dose at the label rate. More stabilizer is not better performance. Adding stabilizer to already gummed fuel does nothing useful. You treat fresh fuel on